Welcome to Distro Podcast.
All right. On today's episode of the Distro Podcast, we welcome Charlie Minutella, CEO of DataZoo. Charlie, welcome.
Thanks, Andrew. Good to be here.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking the time. We're excited to get to know you and your story and learn a bit about your experiences with continuing the growth and the build of DataZoo. So, Charlie, we'll turn the time over to you to share anything you want about your background and an experience and your journey to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. Sounds good. So I've spent my entire career in the sort of intersection of legal, risk, and compliance. And I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I think as a kid, I always wanted to be a lawyer. And then when I went to college and sort of began to study business and push came to shove, I realized I wanted to get out into the world and start working and kind of defer law school. And I ended up at a company called Practicing Law Institute, which is a legal training company based in New York. It's a really interesting background. The company's actually a nonprofit, but it has always been set up very much as a commercially run organization. But the mission was to help create a better understanding of evolving rules and regulations for the legal community globally. It was an interesting time. The company was in a period where it wasn't doing well financially and wanted to take a more kind of business development approach to the business. So like really going out and finding new customers and things along those lines. And it was a really interesting time in the space because it was post .com bubble bust and also post Enron. So there was a lot of change going on in the world. So it was a captive audience. And I was one of the kind of first hires to this newly formed business development / sales team. And, I was 21 years old trying to sell legal services with legal education and training to the largest and most dynamic law firms in the world. So it was it was a baptism by fire in how to actually articulate your points and try to get trained negotiators to purchase things from you. So it was a really interesting first role for me, and I ended up becoming a senior salesperson and then a sales leader in the organization, and we were kind of making it up as we went along, which was a lot of fun. That
sounds like you figured it out though to get to the promoted opportunities.
Yeah, we grew the business from about 20 million in revenue to just under 50 before I left in 4 years. So it was a really excellent learning experience for your first role to come in, be given a blank canvas, and really just try to figure it out, and then build a team who was equally trying to figure it out. So it was definitely something that really shaped me and helped me accelerate where I was at basically 24, 25 years old when I left. So that was great. And then I decided that I wanted to get to a bigger platform, and had an opportunity to join Thomson Reuters in a similar legal information business. And that was going from a 200-person company, pretty much exclusively based in New York, to working for a globally diversified business. And it was right after Thomson and Reuters merged, and I really had no idea what the impact of that was. So joining an organization where two kind of storied companies came together with very different cultures, some businesses that were competing, lots of overlap. So it was also quite a very interesting time to see how Thomson Reuters evolved, and our business grew really well at that time as well. And it was great to be a part of an organization that was in somewhat of a rebirth, which taught me a lot about how businesses can grow and evolve and change, and do so in a way where customers can actually see tangible benefit. And we were able to, as an organization, really change the way the industry looked at us when those organizations came together. It was one of the true I think, success stories. And that kind of Reuters business actually rolled out, became Refinitiv and London Stock Exchange Group, so it continues to thrive. So really great to be a part of Thomson Reuters, and went from that business to another business in Thomson Reuters in legal outsourcing. So that was really my first role where I was able to work on a global stage. So had an opportunity to come in and be part of a team that was an acquisition that Thomson Reuters made. It was a very different business than an information business. We were taking high volume legal work that was being done by very expensive lawyers in the US and UK and doing it in India. So that was a really interesting time to learn a lot about global business. We had over 1,000 people in India, spent a lot of time there, got to know people, really fantastic, passionate, hardworking people that came through in our work, and our customers really valued us. And that was another business that grew exponentially.
I imagine it came with quite a few of its own challenges. One, having, like you said, a lot of high volume, maybe even like prestigious, high priority legal work being worked on by 1,000 people in India.
Yeah, we were
like
working.
That sounds complicated.
It was, and it was before technology. Really, it was way before AI, and it was way before technology, was capable of doing what humans could do. And even today, it's not where it needs to be. There's still a significant human element that's involved in looking at kind of document review and contract analysis and things like that. It's a different type of work. It's definitely more up the value chain than it ever was. But at the time, we were working on some of the highest profile mortgage-backed security cases, government suing huge financial institutions. And then it went into sort of some of the scandals, like the LIBOR scandals, the big trading scandals that happened. So it kind of evolved over time as mortgage-backed securities kind of, ended, and the kind of all of these kind of scandals that were beginning to be litigated. So it was a really interesting time, and that evolved into us kind of taking that capability of document review for litigation, and then going into more contract analysis and negotiation. So around the end of my time there, there were a number of changes in regulations that required banks to revisit and renegotiate the documentation they had with major institutional investors and traders. So there was a huge amount of this kind of high volume template-based legal work that needed to be done. And we were able to kind of take our core competency and sort of shift it into this new and emerging area. And that became a huge part of the business as well. So there was a lot of work that was being done around that during that time. And it was like the 2015, 16, 17 timeframe. And we worked with some of the largest global financial institutions and helped them there as well. And then it was time for a new challenge, and had an opportunity then to move into the space that I'm in today, which is KYC, KYB, kind of know your customer type work to facilitate onboarding and client lifecycle management. And we had started a business at Thomson Reuters that essentially tried to mutualize that process. So the thesis was every major financial institution, banks, the same, BlackRock, the same kind of big investors. And it would be a lot easier for everyone if there was one place where you could go, where you could exchange information so that process could be seamless. And we started a business to do that, which ended up being called KYC as a Service. That business kind of evolved over time. We made an acquisition. There were other big players like Bloomberg and Market, which is now part of S&P, that built businesses in this area. And it was a really interesting case study that made a lot of sense. But when you went to execution, it failed because there was a tug of war between the banks and the buy side in terms of where they were actually going to go to do this and what rules they were going to follow and like what type of documents were acceptable, what policies were they going to follow. And so it became overly complex, and execution is one of those hard lessons that not every idea is an idea that is at the right time, has the right capital, has the right motivation, and can be executed on. It was a hard lesson learned, and we spent a lot of time and put a lot of effort into making it right. And ultimately, it was a really tough decision to shut that business down, but learned quite a bit about, just how complex this space is. And it sort of motivated me to, continue to try to find new ways of doing it. So fast forward a couple of years, Thomson Reuters spun out the sort of financial and risk business, which became Refinitiv. Refinitiv was owned by Blackstone, and then Refinitiv became part of London Stock Exchange Group. And London Stock Exchange Group is now a globally diversified exchange and data business. It's in pretty much every major country. It's got super far reach. It's become a super successful company. The job I had before I left was I was running the customer and third-party risk portfolio, which included 3 or 4 businesses that made up about $600 million in revenue. And I was general manager of the business. I was responsible for our P&L, our strategy, ensuring all our execution, et cetera. It was a really fantastic job. I really enjoyed it. I had opportunities to be exposed to really senior people inside and outside the organization, regulators, lobbyists, et cetera. So it was a fantastic learning opportunity for me as well. And we did some really great things with the business. We acquired 2 businesses, integrated them, and they're doing really well now. So that was a great run. And but just like all things, you kind of get to a point where you decide that something needs to change. You want to do something different. And I kind of took a step away from LSEG and started looking at the sort of more digital version of KYC. And as you know, the global economy is boundless. The size and scope of the digital economy is very hard to quantify right now. According to Forrester, it's $16.5 trillion. It represents about 20% global GDP. That might be an underestimation because everything went digital during COVID. So you might have had a company that was only brick and mortar and you built an online presence to survive. So there's definitely, it's definitely hard to quantify, but also, that you're not going backwards, right? Like digital commerce, digital things.
Here to stay and only develop more. Yeah,
absolutely. And so I wanted to get into a business that was really in the middle of that. And I have, just being a part of a data business, pretty much my whole career, I wanted to focus on a company that had data at the center of their offering, and got to meet DataZoo, and it's been a great ride for the last 8 months.
That's cool. So just to backtrack, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but recap: started your career selling legal education services, and then moved progressively into legal services, like outsourced legal services, and then kind of got your way into the financial side, financial sector, but still on like legal and, working your way through that. And ultimately took the fact that you kind of always worked in data to now be with a data company in an executive level. Miss anything there, or how's that recap?
Yeah, that's right. From a professional perspective, obviously, got married, had kids, the whole bit there during that time period as well, but which is more important than what I've done professionally. But yeah, that's in summary.
It's a journey.
It was it's still quite a ride.
So tell us about DataZoo. Like, what is DataZoo? What's the product offering? And then we'll talk a little bit more about the company dynamics.
Yeah, sure. So DataZoo is a global data-focused identity verification company. So a quick example might be, let's say you go to your favorite fintech and you want to open up an account. You put your name, address, date of birth, your national ID number, your mobile number, your email address. You click submit, and then a lot of magic happens. So the fintech or the bank will look at your information and they'll decide what path you go down. One of the things they do almost always first is they take the data you provided and they sort of try to create connections between that and authoritative data sources. That could mean a credit source, it could mean a government source, it could be a commercial source, it could be a mobile phone operator. There's a number of different kind of categories of data providers they hit. In the background, DataZoo does that for over 200 plus companies. And essentially we create a mechanism for the fintechs to go to one place to be able to put that data in, and then we go out and we've created a network of global authoritative data sources to be able to verify that information is right. And if it's right, that's great. You move along quickly. If there's something that doesn't look right, they might put you down a different path where they might ask you to provide a source of ID or some other means to be able to truly get comfortable with who you are. And they do this for a few reasons. Number one is they want to make sure that they're not dealing with people they don't want on their platforms. Number two is they have regulations to comply with. And they have reputational issues that they want to avoid. So it's a mandatory, from a business and regulatory perspective, piece of the digital financial services puzzle. But that's expanded. This type of process is not only followed by banks and fintechs, but it's also followed by marketplaces. So think like Airbnb, Amazon, those types. It's also done by social media. So think Meta, TikTok, those types. And it's also done by companies that have either content or products that have restrictions. So think like tobacco, alcohol, even like YouTube. So it's a very kind of wide and expansive market, and more diversified companies are doing this because they want to make sure that they're dealing with the people they want to deal with and the companies they want to deal with, and they're not violating any regulation, and they're not putting themselves at risk. So we offer a really important part of that service, and it's only getting more and more complex with deep fakes, synthetic identities. AI drives a lot of this.
I was gonna say that's gonna be an ongoing battle, from now on, right? Like, is all this AI creating their own personas, their own identities, fabricating existing identities? That's going to be tricky for sure. So I'm sure you guys are tackling that, but yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah, it's difficult, and what organizations must do is be very vigilant, always challenge the way they think about this, because I think historically organizations have felt like if I get a copy of a driver's license or passport, I could feel pretty good about it. And there's technology that will be able to determine whether or not that's been altered, or it's got elements that look suspicious to it. There's technology that can pick that up. But the AI has made it so difficult to actually do that companies need to be sort of multifaceted in their approach. They need to use documentation. They need to use data. They may also want to look at other types of alternative data to decide whether or not the devices that are being used, or the email that's being used, or whatever might be compromised. It might have fraudulent characteristics to it. So it is about being really comprehensive now. And there's a lot of companies that are trying to solve this problem. But ultimately, it's up to us to be on the front foot and try to get ahead of where fraudsters are. And that's the mission that makes the job exciting.
Cool. Very cool. Yeah, complicated, but extremely valuable and needed. So love that you guys are doing well. Walk us through the company dynamics. How big is the company now? What's the team dynamic look like? Are you guys all on site? Or are you distributed? Yeah, give us some info there.
So DataZoo is actually was founded in Australia, and the business has historically been based there. We're about 80 people now. But what happened is over the last 4 years, the business significantly evolved. So it was started to help make identity verification and and sourcing of identity information easy for businesses in Australia. Our founder, Tony Fitzgibbon, built an infrastructure that allowed him to be able to take the business and expand it geographically. And over the last 4 years, that's really what we've done. We've gone from being an Australia-based focused company to providing identity verification in over 50 countries. And our customers were once almost exclusively just Australian companies. Now, 80+% of our customers are in the US and Western Europe. So the company became a global company pretty quickly. And as a result of that, Tony decided that about a year or so ago that he needed to change the way that DataZoo was operating to be able to serve those customers the right way, and also be able to capture what DataZoo could do in terms of growth. So that's where he and I connected, and in February I came in to the business, and in April we raised Series A funding, and that capital is being used to expand our geographic footprint to the U.S. So we now have 10 people in the U.S. There were 2 when I started. And we have about 70 people in Australia. So the challenge we have organizationally is, how do we keep the charm that DataZoo has and being this like fintech, Australia origin, very customer obsessed, very focused, to have that extend to now a global organization where we don't operate in the same business day. So that's the organizational challenge we have. Obviously, the opportunity is, if we do this the right way, we've got a tremendous road ahead of us.
Are you in the U.S. or are you in Australia?
No, I'm in the U.S. I live in New York, outside of New York City.
Got it. So do you have a hub there in New York with your 10 people, or are you distributed throughout the U.S.?
We are distributed. I am in my office of 1 in Jersey City.
Nice.
But yeah, so the strategy that we implemented was we want to hire the best and most aligned people we could find. And we were going to be a remote heavy organization by default because we had such a heavy concentration of people in Australia, but all our customers are here. So it made it an easy decision for me not to have to become sort of location centric and just find people who matched what we were looking for.
So that is a perfect segue to the second component of this interview, which is finding the best people, like finding your people that meet your core values, that have the technical chops that you need. Like, how have you gone about doing that so far in your time at DataZoo, in your seat? And then, what's been your approach to like both finding the talent and then ensuring that they are the right fit?
Yeah, it's hard. The short answer, it's hard. I've prioritized high character, highly capable people. with great experience who want to do something very interesting. There haven't been too many opportunities recently to join a company that have a really strong customer base, a product that works. You have product market fit. It's a matter of being able to, re-solidify your foundation to be able to handle the pressures of scaling. And it's a unique position to be in. So it's an attractive place for people to come to at a high level, especially those that understand the space and know how important data is to the future. But being able to find the people that want to work in an environment that is highly collaborative. We prioritize 4 things at DataZoo from a values perspective: customer obsession, focus, collaboration, and innovation. And with that comes a specific character profile of people who want to work together, who are mature, who have great experience, that want to work in this kind of team setting and do something really impactful. So finding people that are entrepreneurial at heart, who don't have huge egos, that that see that the opportunity to kind of bring this thing together is a team sport, and that's what we found. We found that in our hires at the C level, and now that we're continuing to build out our senior leadership team and senior individual contributors, that's at our priorities. That's our a focus and our priority is to get those characteristics really identified early in the process.
Is there a specific either question or series of questions or some sort of like culture index, a survey that you guys do, or Clifton strengths? Like what's your key approach in finding your key people?
Yeah.
And like vetting out those characteristics.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, a lot of it is feel. I mean, I wish we were more scientific in how we identify talent. We're not. And that's because I think getting the first few hires right was really important to us. So our chief revenue officer and chief product officer, they're high character people. They work super hard. They've got great relationships in the industry. They have great networks themselves. And, the tone that I set is, very much like, these are people that we need to be able to work with. They're people that need to be receptive to feedback. They're people that need to be able to be pushed a little bit, to drive performance. We're very focused on that, but do it in a very non-threatening, collaborative setting, right? And that's not for everybody. Some people want to come in, they want to be left alone, they want to deliver the number, they want to be patted on the back, and they move on. We're probably not the right fit for them. We're at a point in our existence where, in order to really scale, and this is the way it was at the organizations that I mentioned, and when we were able to deliver double, triple, 2, 3, 4x growth in a very short amount of time, is that people came together and really saw the value of diverse opinions and diverse experiences in actually, moving the needle. And we kind of asked those questions in a roundabout way in our interview process. So I guess that's really the thing we kind of hone in on when we evaluate talent.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, you can't argue operating through feel when vetting out some people, like especially focusing on like character and personality and how that aligns to core values, right? Like there's always going to be a component of the like gauging feel and vibe, but there are other alternatives that can help too, which we can talk about separately. But very cool. So what is like the future? What's growth look like for you guys? You mentioned a Series A coming to fruition, and that obviously is to stimulate growth. Like, do you have a pretty aggressive headcount plan? Is there a core focus to maybe grow the US team, or are you trying to diversify globally your different, hubs or teams?
Yeah, it's a good question. So our ambition is we want to be the data layer that powers every identity platform globally. So we have a very ambitious goal. How we do that is going to be a combination of us investing in people and investing in technology. We probably need to do a little bit more of thinking about how we get human coverage across the world. The opportunity across the world is not just in the U.S. and our customers want to be met where they are. So there's an opportunity for us to think about that in the longer term. More immediately, we see great opportunities to continue to strengthen our teams in Australia and the U.S. And we're doing so. We've brought in some great talent, and we continue to do that. And we're seeing immediate benefit from that. As we continue to expand our offering and bring more data in, become more diversified, et cetera.
Yeah.
And then technology becomes a huge enabler for that. We have an AI agenda that we're executing on, and we want to make our data smarter for our customers. And we're going to continue to invest in people to be able to get us there. So it's definitely a multi-pronged approach.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm excited to see what you guys do. It sounds ambitious for sure, but like what you guys are doing, I imagine there's not 1,000,001 competitors doing the exact having the exact product or providing the same value that you guys are doing or providing. So here, before we wrap up, final question I always ask is, what word of advice or lesson learned are you willing to share that has helped with finding these core key people and building a strong yet distributed and dynamic team?
Yeah, it's a good question. Someone told me, and I don't exactly remember who it is, so I can't attribute it. But if
Just claim it.
and remembers it was them, just come and tell me. Talent acquisition is a perpetual thing. You have to always be meeting people and learning about who's out there, building your network, because you never know when you're going to have an opportunity, whether that's prompted or unprompted, right? You might have an opportunity to bring someone in because they've reached out to you and said, hey, I'm really interested in what you're doing, and I think I can help you here. And a business case evolves, and you're able to maybe do something that you ever thought you'd be able to do because someone's come to you with an idea, and then they meet all your sort of qualification must-haves. But then obviously you're always worried about key talent leaving the organization. And, I spend a lot of time thinking about how DataZoo could be a place where no one wants to leave, but everybody will leave at some point, right? One way or the other. And, you've got to make sure that you have a bench of people that you could look to. It doesn't have to be official. You don't have to tell them that they're on the bench. You probably shouldn't, but you kind of have a roster of people that you'd call if your key people decided to do something different. That's helped me when I had an opportunity to come to DataZoo. We hired 2 of our key C-levels within 60 days of me joining. So
impressive.
Yeah, so we, right time, right place for all of us. But I had met I had met one of them in my previous role, and I had never met the other one, but we were, connected to many of the same people. So we were able to vet each other pretty quickly. So you have to think about that, like getting yourself out there, being in your networks, building your networks out, keeping track of what people are up to. That's hard work, but if you get it right, then you can move quickly if you ever need to, for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's what you've touched on here is actually a newly introduced concept or philosophy from any of the other founders or CEOs that we've interviewed, and I like it. Which it's ultimately like, you've got, what's the sales motto? ABC, always be closing. Well, always be recruiting, always be networking, right? Like, what better way to identify global talent, local talent, wherever the talent, but what better way to find and connect when you need the people than to establish those relationships just continuously ongoing. I love it. That's great. And I have no doubt that that's all, like you said, it's already been a clear sign of success for you guys because you've done that, and no doubt that it'll continue to work. So awesome. Well, Charlie, thank you so much for being a guest. Thanks for sharing your story, sharing about DataZoo and how you go about building your teams and finding your key people. Really appreciate your time. Yeah, thanks again.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Cool. Everyone listening in, look out for DataZoo. Look up Charlie, Minutella. Sounds like they're doing some great things, and awesome. We'll close with that. Thanks.